Welcome into what we're calling the morning after post-game show. I am your host, Landon Tangwell, joined with my good friend Keith Goon Conlin. We were just saying, has been offensive lineman here. We'll be showing
has been, never was.
Never was. All of the above. We'll be joined by a legendary offensive lineman, Penn State offensive lineman here very shortly. But Goon, we got some stuff to get into, man. I was before the show. I was thinking. I said, how are we going to have stuff to come up with when we beat Bowling Green by 50?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not really what happened, man.
When you start talking like, wow, it's great to see the 19th string center in the game, getting his snaps in and getting a quarter toward being a letterman and stuff like that. And that was the expected. I'm sure that was the expected norm for yesterday. So.
Yeah, and I might have jinxed it. I put out a tweet and I said when, I don't know if you saw this. I said, how quickly would you like to see the starters out of the game against Bowling Green? Well, clearly I should not have said that at all. That was quite the mistake on my part. As just to give you a recap, if you haven't heard, Penn State survived Bowling Green 34-27. Drew Aller had 204 yards, 3 touchdowns, one of those on the ground. And then Tyler Warren had a single game receiving record for Penn State tight ends.
Yep.
So at 8 receptions, 146 yards. So a great kind of a sneaky game for Tyler Warren. Just there was so much going on and barely beating Bowling Green. He didn't get as much props as he deserves for having the best game ever here for a Penn State tight end. So definitely something to talk about there.
Nice little show tease for us for tomorrow night.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's how I was thinking. I was getting out of the car and I was like, Goon. So we scheduled for Goon's Player Show Monday night. Tune in, same Fox station, right? We're on the same station.
Yep.
Tomorrow night. Yeah. Are you going to be there?
6 to 7. Yeah.
6 to 7. All right. I'm me, Aeneas Hawkins, Goon, and then we're going to bring on Tyler Warren as a guest. So get ready. Tune in for that one. He clearly picked the right guest at the right time. You're picking record holders right after the game. That's the way to schedule someone. So definitely tune into that. We're going to have that coming up shortly. So Goon, we're going to talk. We'll get into. There's a couple other games I want to talk about outside of Penn State, but we'll wait for Marco to come on here a second. We're dropping it out.
You dropped the
Marco
name.
Rivera will be on with us very shortly. Me and Goon were saying we'll have 2 has-been offensive linemen and then 1 legendary one. So be fun. Be fun to get into it. So
let's get into the game.
Yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. So first off, as a player, walking away from a game like that, How do you feel? Because some people say, hey, you're in the win column, you feel good. Is that how you are feeling walking away from this game? We'll fix it later and we got the win?
Yeah. I guess the old man used to teach us that and every good to great team always has a game that they're not supposed to win. They really shouldn't win. Like the ball bounces the wrong way. They just have a bad game up and down. You usually don't like to have it in a game like that. Versus a Bowling Green, a MAC team coming in here. But I have to give you my 2 cents, and that has always been early in the season. Colin Coward had said this about 15 years ago. I remember watching him, listening to him on the radio, and he was talking about, talking about sports betting and stuff like that. Not that we are, but he always used to say, you got to watch out for the teams early in the year with the most returning starters because they've been there and done that, and they're just renewing last season. So they had been through some stuff in this and that. And Bowling Green was returning a lot. And they had a pretty damn good quarterback who was slinging the ball around yesterday early and often. They showed no fear whatsoever.
That first drive, it was like
they went down the field. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It was they did not want to come into this game fearful of Penn State, of saying, hey, they're the big bad Penn State. There wasn't any of that. They came in, they kind of dropped their nuts a little bit and drove right down the field. Connor Basilak, I believe is his name. He threw the ball 39 times, almost 40 times for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And what did you not like about that?
Oh my gosh! Well,
what didn't happen yesterday?
Here's the biggest thing: there was no pressure. There was no pressure.
There was no sack.
The Penn State's defensive line, and I definitely want to get into this a little bit. Was not getting enough pressure. Now he was getting the ball out quick. I have seen some stats on that. He was getting the ball out quick, but when you're not applying pressure on a MAC quarterback, that's where the separation is. When you're playing a MAC team, it's not the skill players. Everybody has good skill players that can run 4 threes. There's sometimes you got a little bit better players, obviously, at Penn State, but the separation from a great Big Ten team to a MAC team is up front. That's where you dominate on both sides of the ball. And, we did decent as far as an offensive line, but the defensive line really struggled not only to get pass rush, but they ran the ball pretty well. I mean, this is a rushing attack last week. I mean, they had 305 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground versus Fordham. And everybody said, oh, it's Fordham. You know, who cares? That's an FCS opponent. They suck. Well, enter in Bowling Green. They had 121 yards on the ground. That doesn't sound like a ton, but this is a Penn State defense that last week they held the #1 rushing attack all of college football last year, West Virginia. And last week they held them to 85 yards. So it's like, I think the expectation was there. Okay, you know, Tom Allen and company is they're gonna rush for a total of 30 yards. But that's not really what happened. And their offense was humming. I mean, they were definitely a creative offense. And you saw, I mean, our linebackers were definitely put at a deficit at times through their pre-snap motion stuff that Andy Kotonicki's been doing. But another thing is too, like the tackle. I mean, it just felt like every single play they were breaking one extra tackle and extending the drive, first downs. And that number 0, man, their tight end was what Harold Finnan Jr. was giving us work yesterday. Not as much work as Tyler Warren gave them, but
tight end heavy game yesterday.
It was. It's he apparently, from what I understand, he's a possible one of their possible NFL players. So yeah, I thought that was definitely something to take note of, because normally it's tight ends versus the linebackers. And, you know, we like our first team linebackers with Kobe King, Dom DeLuca, and Tony Rojas. And we'll talk about Tony Rojas in a little bit.
I want to talk about a couple of those things, and that is, like, if you notice, we're not wrapping. I know Rojas had a play last year, their 4th down play against West Virginia last week, where he just came in, and then other guys were tackling. He just came in with the elbow just to finish him off, type of thing. Just hit him and wrap him, get him down. But then I will say this about Rojas, and that was he did have that off play last week against West Virginia. But then after that, his game in West Virginia last week was amazing, how well he played. And then getting in the yesterday, and then not just Rojas, I mean, a lot of the guys were out there, and that was guys were not wrapping up and finishing and ripping through and following through with the tackling. It was very strange not seeing that many missed tackles from our defense.
It was. And well, I'm going to ask you this. Do you think, and this is always the old head take, are we not practicing tackling enough?
Well, and you can't. I mean, it's not on you guys. It's not on us. We didn't. I mean, the thing is that, and then you'll see this today. And you know me. I'm an old school cat, and that is, today will be the worst day of football, in the NFL, because our offensive defensive linemen, they have not seen full speed, top to bottom tackling for 4 quarters since when? Since January of
last year.
Yeah, they don't have a spring. They don't have summer workouts. They don't, and when they do have their summer camp, you can't afford to do full contact tackling and stuff like that in practice. So, and then as offensive linemen, you know, our 2 washed up butts, you know, it's all about the timing and stuff like that. And you're going against a defensive line that's live versus a guy who's going through in thud and not following through and not finishing. It is a huge difference. And your timing is messed up. Your punch is messed up. Your contact point is messed up. You'll see sloppy football early in the season in the NFL. And I think that maybe our tackling yesterday had something to do with that. I mean, it just seems like we did miss a lot of tackles, and we weren't finishing up on our tackles. But is that a result of not being able to go live? We've had 1 live game since the spring game of last year, so 2 games since the Peach Bowl. We've had live contact. I don't know. You know, you would know better than I. Are they going to the ground in scrimmages and practice during the preseason?
Yes.
Are they going full bore?
Yeah. So there's about once a week. You know, it doesn't change. I'll tell you, for the offensive line though, it doesn't matter if it's thud, if it's walkthrough, or if it's full speed. It doesn't change for the offensive line. You're going body to body with that defensive line.
Because you don't want to get, if you're going to go half speed and say, hey, we're going to go thud, and then Johnny All-American goes 92 miles an hour, and then you look foolish, and then
somebody gets hurt, too.
The coach is chewing you out, or somebody gets hurt. So you can't really afford that type of thing. And that's what coaches have to go through. And the other thing you see is the special teams. Now, the NFL has got rid of the kickoff stuff, so there's really not that live kickoff that they have to worry about. But like our punt coverage, our kick coverage, our kickoff team, stuff like that, they don't go live in preseason.
Good
you
point.
know,
That's
a
really good
the
point.
NFL guys don't do it. They're not doing it. Well, the NFL has changed it now, and rightfully so. You like that rule?
I mean, yeah. Well, it makes the play. It makes it an actual play. I saw a stat from the preseason that the kickoff return unit last year, all of NFL season, it was about a 25% return rate. Now the preseason, it was about 70. So I mean, it's a real play now that you're actually starting to see.
What they got rid of is the 60-yard head start for a 245-pound linebacker who's going to run down there and try to get blocked by a free safety who's on a special team. You know what I mean? That is where those concussions and those heavy, high-speed hits were happening in the NFL, where you're on those kickoff coverages. And Marco will tell you a story. His rookie year, which would have been our rookie year, a guy, our old teammate, John Whitman, was on one of our fullbacks. And he just ran down the field, and Marco was on. It was like back in the day when the second-team offense was like the front line, like cannon fodder, right?
Yeah,
so Marco was running back, and he says that Whitman was going 2,000 miles an hour trying to rip Marco's head off because Whitman was a psycho. And he went over Marco or around Marco, and he went on the ground, and he broke Marco's future center's leg in that game just on a kickoff team. And he was like, laughing and stuff like that. I was like, dude, just complete wackos. But they got rid of that in the NFL. So.
Well, I'm curious if that's going to trickle down to college football. I think it will because it makes too much sense. Kickoff, it's just not really a play at all. But circling back, let's get back into this Bowling Green game.
Yep.
To you, is this defense something to worry about? Because pregame I was doing a show and I said, hey, Tom Allen, he is Manny Diaz. He's taken over. This is the best possible scenario for the Penn State defense to have someone that wanted to, was head coach for a while, wants to take a step back down a little bit. It doesn't want to have all those responsibilities, but still be someone who's a pretty elite, a defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But is this something to worry about, or is it just, we need to clean up the tackling? And Bowling Green, we got to tip our caps to their offensive coordinator. They came with a hell of a game plan against this Penn State defense, and none of their guys were scared. There was no flinching, and they just went at them. But is there anything to worry about, do you think, with Tom Allen's defense?
Well, I mean, that's all. We will see. I mean, going into a bye week, there's a lot of work that Penn State can do. Me and Marco played for the old man, and he'd always used to talk about the most improvement on football teams between week 1 and 2 of the football season. So, I think we took a step back offensively and defensively from the West Virginia game, this Bowling Green game. And going in, it sort of could be a blessing that we're going into a bye week. And coach is going to be like, usually in a bye week, they send the guys home, you get a couple of days off. I think we're going to probably work through it.
Oh, I think we will too. And there's going to be some tackling circuits, that type of thing. Well, once Marco gets on, I do want to talk about the differences for you guys back in the 90s here at Penn State, your bye week, what that looked like, to what our bye week looks like now, because I am very curious about that. It should be fun. But one thing I do want to talk about, we were talking about the defensive line struggling against Mac, offensive line.
That's a good really, Mac offensive line. The Mac guys. I mean, Marco will tell you, there's a ton of guys in the NFL from Mac schools. That's good football.
Those big Midwest
you're a Maryland guy. I'm a Pennsylvania guy. We tout our high school football system and this and that. But you take Ohio, that is great football from top to bottom. I mean, the Macs. I mean, how many schools are in the Mac from Ohio? 5 or 6.
Yes,
I mean they're just hammering those guys. But those guys, they're 1, 2, 3 inches too short to go to an Ohio State, go to a Penn State. They're just one click below going to West Virginia, or do you want to go to a Pitt, or do you want to go to a Bowling Green where you might start for 4 years, play right away? And those guys on the offensive line, they've been playing together for a while, and they know what they were doing. And Marco will tell you, if you play with the same guys for a few years, I mean, Marco was on the other side of me, but I had Jeff Harding next to me. We didn't have to talk. You know what I mean? It was just like, if we did talk, it was probably being dummy calls and screwing with the D-line.
Yeah, right.
And if you know the guy next to you and he knows what you're doing, and you don't have to, you know exactly what they're going to do and how they block and what's going on. You can start messing with those defensive linemen. And those guys from Bowling Green yesterday, they look like they had been playing together for a little bit, for a long while. And, our D-line maybe got a little fat-headed, after that West Virginia game. And it was Tom Allen maybe. They scouted us well. They had us ready to go. They had us dead to rights there on that first drive. They knew exactly what they were going to get, and they went down the field like it was Ohio State or Michigan. They really did.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a veteran group up front for Bowling Green's offensive line, and you're right. I mean, they came out with their scripted plays, and they knew what they were going to run was going to work. But another interesting piece that I want to talk about too is the NIL factor, because now with NIL, you can't hide guys on your roster. There's that guy that's too deep. He goes, oh, Bowling Green, you know, it might not be offering a ton of money, but I can go and transfer whenever I want. I can go play. That's why you're not seeing that. I think you're going to see more and more upsets because of those guys that are kind of hidden away on the roster. You can't do it anymore because there's too much opportunity to leave to go make money elsewhere. And guys are like, hey, I'm going to go try out this opportunity over at this school. So you can't stash guys as much. So I think that's another thing to kind of to talk about for sure.
The back thing, when Marco and I played, we got done here in 95. So about 10 years after that, I believe 05-ish was – they dropped down from 105 scholarships down to 85. And if you really think about that, those extra 20 scholarships that they weren't giving out to Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, you know, they were going to MAC guys, you know. And what they did is they created actually a better brand of football in the MAC because they were getting higher skilled players, guys that used to come here. Marco comes on here. We'll talk about it. Our roommate, Jeff Hardings. Jeff Hardings was 240 pounds from a little farming town in Northwest Ohio. Like, he should not have been at Penn State. I'm not laughing. He should not have been at Penn State. He was maybe a 2-star if they even had the stars back then. He had nothing. There was no accolades in this and that. So he's a guy that would have slipped through the cracks at Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State because he was not a great name player and stuff like that. But because we had 105 scholarships, he could have gotten one. You know, if we had 85 scholarships the way they do now, then maybe a guy like Jeff slips through the cracks and doesn't get the shot at the high Division I level, and he goes and has to play at a Bowling Green or a MAC school in Ohio or a Marshall type of school. You know, so I mean, that scholarship reduction really improved the MAC, the style of play and the level of play. And, you know, when we were talking last night, we had a bunch of guys back at my house. And, you know, we just get, you know, it may have been Friday, it may have been last night.
Who knows?
It all melded together when you're getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go tailgate. So we were talking when we were back in the day. Like, the transfer portal is really – I'm okay with the NIL because we understand what we had to go through. And there's a jealousy aspect of it there, but it's not. It's also like, okay, we know we're not going to get it. You know, it is what it is. But the fact that you guys are getting it right now, we're happy as hell. Trust me, we're ecstatic that you guys are getting it because it never was available to us. The biggest thing that is different to us is this transfer portal, where you literally can just wake up in the morning and say, okay, you know what? I don't want to go to this class. I don't want to. The coach is really up my butt right now. I don't like it here. I don't want to be here. You could be playing for a different team in a week. And it's just insane. And like when we were back in the day, it was you could not transfer laterally. You had to go down.
Really?
Level.
Oh, so you had to leave. So you had to go down.
You could not play. We could not leave Penn State and go to Bowling Green.
That's why dudes would go like D2, right?
That's why you had to go to 1AA. You had to go
to
Division III. I mean, a lot of Penn State guys historically had gone to Rowan. A lot of guys that we had going to Delaware.
Interesting.
So that was back in the day where you could not transfer laterally. There was a thing where you could actually transfer from Big Ten to Big Ten at all, even if you wanted to sit out a year. So you could go to another top. You know. We could, I mean, me and Marco, you can get him on the air and we'll talk about it. And like, how many times did we think about transferring?
Yeah.
When it was so hard to do it versus now it's so easy. And I just hope that these kids that are transferring because they think, you know, they get a little pressure and this and that, and they just, and they book out and they run away, you know?
Yeah, my man Jack, he said 32 senior players on Bowling Green. That sounds about, I mean,
that's insane.
That's a veteran team with, I believe, it's a 6-year quarterback. It's someone that played for Tom Allen at Indiana in 2022, I believe. So yeah, we've been talking about Mark.
He was going against.
Well,
no, not Tom. I mean the quarterback.
What? Oh yeah. He balled out. We got to give him his props and the offensive coordinator. But guys, we will be right back. This is the morning after show, post game. Landon Tangwall, Keith Goon, Conlin, sponsored by the Student Bookstore downtown. We will be here every home game Sunday, 10 to 11 a.m. We're about to be joined by a actual legendary offensive lineman. We got 2 washed up ones right here, but Marco Rivera is going to be joining us right after this break.
The Center Hall Farm Store has been serving Center County and beyond for well over a half century. A small family business, the Center Hall Farm Store specializes in animal nutrition and manufactures its feed fresh using local ingredients. Get the best in horse, cow, pig, chicken, and bird feeds. If you're not already a customer, stop in and see why so many of your neighbors are. The Center Hall Farm Store at 110 West Allison Street in Center Hall, or call us at 814-364-1393.
A lot has changed about State College. One thing that hasn't is W.C. Clark's Coffee Roasters on 234 East Calder Way. 30 different varieties of specialty coffee beans sourced from over 25 countries and roasted with love each morning in Happy Valley for over 45 years. They'll ship their fresh roasted coffee from their doorstep to yours. Order online at statecollegecoffee.com. That's statecollegecoffee.com.
Two of the top names in local printing have combined to serve you better. King Printing of State College has merged with theprinters.com, forming one of the 400 largest printers in America. Combining traditional offset printing and digital workflow techniques, theprinters.com can print, assemble, package, and ship to anywhere in the world, all with the same high quality customers have known and trusted for over 50 years. Buy local and save. Get started today at theprinters.com.
Ready to be part of something bigger? Come pave the road to success at Glen O'Habaker and discover a career where your hard work and determination can build a bigger, better future. Our team believes we can build a stronger future together. Join us at Glen O'Habaker, where we value teamwork on the field and on the job. Go to GOHcareers.com to apply. GOHcareers.com. And best of luck to all the Center County sports teams all season long from everyone at Glen O'Habaker.
With a Timber Kids savings account, you can start to save money, earn prizes, and teach your kids the value of savings. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Building futures is what we do at TFCU.
You really need to belong to a credit union. You belong at TFCU, Timberland Federal Credit Union, a credit union you can grow with.
Get up and get going with the Happy Valleys 98.7 The Fox.
Well, we are back morning after post-game show. Keith Goon, Conlin, Landon Tangwall, and now we are joined by Penn State legend offensive lineman Marco Rivera. Marco, thanks for coming through, man. We are this is quite a group now. Goon surprised us with Marco today.
American Airlines surprised us.
Well, shout out American Airlines. They made this show a lot better. I'm sure Marco would rather be on his way home right now, but hey, now here we sit, and now we have three former Penn State offensive linemen ready to just talk ball, but we can't pass up this opportunity to talk some other stuff. First, I got to bring this up. You guys were obviously the centerpiece of that 94 Rose Bowl team, and Nebraska and Colorado, I'm sure everybody tuned in last night to watch Dylan Raiola tear up Colorado. But the other notable piece of that was that Nebraska was honoring their 1994 national championship team. So I know it hurts, but I just got to ask you guys your opinion on that. Do you still feel slighted to a certain degree?
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. Not to take anything away from that team. That was a very, very good team. And
they deserved it too.
And they deserved it. But, our problem is, we were second fiddle. I feel like we were second fiddle the entire year. We were number one in the country, and they used the Indiana game as an excuse to knock us off from number one to number two. And after that, it was nothing but Nebraska. And, it's just I call it the greatest injustice in college football sports, man. It's how can you have two of the greatest teams ever not play each other for the true national championship? So that to me is always gonna burn me. I mean, I feel it's still as fresh today as it was back in the day. I feel like Penn State as the school.
Where's my phone, Marco? I'm going to show you an Instagram I got sent to me today.
I feel like the school should have protested that some more. I felt like there was not enough support for us to mount an attack for at least co-champions, but nothing happened, and so I guess we're the champions of Pennsylvania.
You're going to see this.
Goon's over here showing a little
showing their halftime show.
Yeah.
Oh man,
the fireworks display, the droids in the crowd, this and that. So I mean, the problem is And then, like Marco said, we take nothing. People are like, oh, do you hate Nebraska? I said, why would I hate Nebraska? They did exactly what they had to do that year. They won every game. I blame the politics of the NCAA. I mean, you're never going to hear any kind of love come from my mouth about the NCAA at all, ever. Trust me. And that is that, I always say in every sport at the NCAA level, Division I, Division I AA, Division II, and Division III, every sport has a playoff, except for the most powerful and the most lucrative, and that is college football. Division III football had a playoff. Division I AA had a playoff. Division II had a playoff. Division I does not have a playoff until after us again. Like as Chris Bugnani calls us, we're always the canary in the coal mine. They're always like testing stuff on Penn State and screwing us, and then they change the rules. Like when Joe complained about not having video review. And then Joe ran, I don't know if you remember, you were probably -8 years old.
Yeah, pretty much.
So when Joe ran across the field and had a picture of that he was throwing and yelling at the referee and stuff like that. Oh, that's a blatantly bad call. But, I mean, that's the way I look at it. Another great analogy, and this it'll work with you, and that is imagine playing your NCAA basketball tournament. And then Friday night you have Oklahoma and Duke win their semifinal games, okay? And then on Sunday morning, everybody goes home, and then they say, okay, we're going to vote. Who would win between Oklahoma and Duke? And that's how college football is.
And that's how they decided to crown Nebraska the national team. Just like that. Okay, Penn State's defense is not as good as Nebraska's defense, so let's give it to Nebraska. I'm like, yeah, but our offense would have put 50 points on them boys. But
how do you beat? Yeah. How do you? I mean, that was a highly optioned team. Okay, their claim to fame is, and I don't know. You want to start blowing the land away with some stat totals here, Marco?
I need to hear it.
How many times do you think Kerry Collins was sacked his senior year?
Oh, okay.
1994.
Oh man, let's go. I don't want to slight you guys. Let's go like a good year. I think a really good year for offensive linemen. How many games did you play? So you guys played what? 12 games. I'd say a really good year would be 12 sacks. Let's go 10 sacks. Let's go 10 sacks. Couple games with 10 sacks.
You're pretty good.
Close,
but not good enough. Now, in your wildest dreams, what would you think? Now, this is a pass. Now I have to say this: Nebraska, their offensive line allowed 0 sacks. They threw the ball like 9 times, so that's understood. So if you have Kerry Collins, who was finished number 3 in the Heisman to Kyle or Kijana Carter, he finished 2. Okay, so it's not like we were not throwing the pill around. Okay, Kerry was an All-American quarterback. He was the All-American quarterback then. So he was throwing the ball around a lot. How many times do you think he got sacked?
All right. If you want me to go as far as I'll go 5 sacks. So if you gave up half the games, you guys pretty much didn't have a sack let up. I'll go 5.
You got one more guess.
Seriously? So what would you guys give up? 2 sacks?
3.
3 sacks.
Kerry Collins got sacked 3 times his whole senior year.
Oh my God.
And again, the other thing about our offense is that we were about 252 passing and 248 rushing average. So we were averaging 400 or 500 yards a game. So it wasn't like we were not throwing the ball.
Whoa!
That's why it made us so different. Is because if you wanted to put 8 in the box, Kerry Collins was going to have his career day.
Right.
If you wanted to sit back and play a zone and not let Kerry pick you apart with Bobby Ingram and Freddie Scott and Kyle Brady, guess what was going to happen? John Carter was going to go off. So you knew you were going to get slaughtered. So you just had to figure out how you wanted to take it.
Well, you got to pick your poison. I mean, that's anytime you have a potent rushing attack, it opens everything else up. Sure. And I'm sure you
noticed that about Penn State.
Exactly. You start to see Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen get going, and it's easier for Drew Aller. And that's what, honestly, that was the problem last year. We did not stretch the field. Mike Yurcich did not stretch the field enough. Drew Aller wasn't taking those shots. And Drew Aller, people say he only had 2 interceptions last year. And I say I almost want him to have more this year because I want him to take those chances, take those opportunities where the defense put a little fear in them that he's going to take a deep shot to Amari Evans or Trey Wallace every once in a while. And if you constantly, throwing underneath, throwing at the sticks and just trying to run the ball and they put 7-8 in the box, well, that's going to continue to happen. But now you got an offensive coordinator in Andy Kotelnicki where he's scheming things up. I mean, think last week on that counter run that Nick Singleton scored on, it might have been power, but we had Amari Evans in an orbit motion. He came from the slot position, and he came around Drew Aller in orbit motion. And what that did is it pulled the Mike out of the box, and he followed the orbit motion. So instead of having a 7-man box to run against, we had a 6-man box, meaning that instead of 7 defenders, there was only 6 defenders, all because of what Andy Kotelnicki did pre-snap, moving that middle linebacker out of the box. Nick Singleton hit it 40-yard touchdown.
Now, if that linebacker didn't follow him, he would have motioned right back out, and then he knew what he was doing.
Well, yeah, and then
all he did was expose the defense for what it was, and everybody knew what it was doing.
Exactly. And then there's things. If the if that linebacker doesn't react and Amari comes on that over motion, well, now maybe you create a fake power and you throw that little swing pass, and you got 2 blockers out there, and Tyler Warren and maybe someone like
this is the guy right here. He played for the Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. You had Chamorro early in your year, but late in your career, you had Mark Whitten. He made a living on play action passes right down the middle of the field.
Yeah, he did. He'll be in the Hall of Fame now. And most of his career was that. Him and got Jason Witten and Dan Campbell, Mark Chimera.
Dan Campbell.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, he's killing it for the Lions.
Dude, I called Marco. I was like, dude, what is up with your boy at this press conference? It's like, dude, that guy's real. That's how he really is.
Passionate, man. Like that.
You know what we're talking about? His press
oh yeah, of course. When he got the kneecaps off, of course, legendary.
That's why the guys love playing for him, because he's legit. There's no lie in him, and I mean, he's passionate, and the guys see it. And that's what really players want to play for coaches like that.
Mm.
They don't want coaches, that blow a lot of hot air. They want guys who are passionate who've been there.
How many times we talk about that on our shows?
Well, all the time. And
every player you talk to, just be honest with the player. Yeah. Because players see right through the BS. We had a couple BS coaches. And you knew they didn't have any kind of gumption behind them. And it was just like, you're not really listening to me. You don't really care. You're just playing the fluff thing. And you're playing like you're a coach and you're a buddy, but you're not. But there are other coaches that you will run through a wall because you know where you stand. I would rather be told you stink, you need to get better because I played better scared. Then they'll come in and say, oh, dude, you're doing a great job. You're so good. And I'm going to sit there and say, oh, I must be doing something right. What's going on? I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to get any better that way.
Yeah, telling you what you want to hear instead of what you need to hear. You're absolutely right. And honestly, that's something that I talked about with Manny Diaz is I had the pleasure to be around Manny Diaz. And in my mind, he was the greatest coach I've ever been around. He was a teacher of men, but the way that he just spoke and would capture everybody's attention. I mean, we'd be in a team meeting and he's talking to the defense and you got the offense leaning in like this. And we're locked in. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, that's really what a true coach is right there. And it was just so impressive to me. So when he left, I was a little bit worried about kind of the emotional aspect of the defense because they loved Manny Diaz. I mean, they would go. I was roommates with Don DeLuca. He would jump off a cliff if Manny Diaz were to tell him to. They would follow him to the ends of the earth. So that's why I was a little bit worried about that transition. As much as I think Tom Allen is a great replacement for what he is, he's not Manny Diaz, and you can't replace that love for a coach that you play for. There's no replacement for that.
I know you missed the show on Monday night, but I talked about, imagine how Tom Allen woke up one day and said, oh, my God. He never coached a 5-star recruit at Indiana, and he has 4 on defense right now. I mean, you imagine that? Just a blessed like that, like, whoa, what could I do now?
Yeah, all the possibilities are endless.
Different possibilities that he had ideas back in Indiana he couldn't do because he didn't have the scheme could be there. But you don't have the aces in their places, you're in trouble. So his job is to find them, get them aces in the places and make it happen. And imagine waking up one morning and say, okay, wow, I have the ability to move Abdul Carter from linebacker to defensive end because we have that much depth at linebacker.
Yep.
So I could take a 5-star, possible future All-American, possible going to be a future first-round NFL pick and say, you know what, we could move his position to defensive end. And you tell me, Marco, you live in Dallas. You were a Dallas Cowboy. Do you see the similarities between Abdul and Micah Parsons?
Sorry.
And I just feel like Penn State saw when Dan Quinn
got
a hold of Micah and said, you know what, we're wasting this guy playing him at inside linebacker. Let's get this guy all around the field. Who's it remind you of when we were growing up as little kids? From your team. Number 56 for the New York Giants.
LT.
Yeah, I mean he changed the game. You got a werewolf out there as an offensive lineman. You're walking out there. You're saying, okay, where's the werewolf right now?
Well, you got a game plan for Lawrence Taylor because he could himself single-handedly disrupt the game. Without him in the game, it was a totally different atmosphere. You put him in the game anywhere in the field, you need to know where that man is, and that's what's happening now with the Cowboys. With Micah, their game plan is where's Micah? That's the game plan because he'll line up on both sides, and they're using him very well down at the Cowboys. That's why he's having the success he's having, and hopefully, they sign him to a new contract, and he'll play a lot more years with the Cowboys. But he's gonna. That kid is legit. Now they comparing him to LT.
No. I'm saying he's the type of guy. No, I'm not saying he's dynamic like that, where he could play an inside linebacker position, but then he can also drop down to an outside linebacker defensive end.
I need to see
that's a special
his production get up to LT's production, but he needs to maintain that for years and years.
Yes, and stay off the blow.
Yeah, right. That's true, Marco. Well, real quick, I'm curious, Marco, when you are playing a guy like Micah Parsons now or LT back then, what is that game planning like for a defensive end that is that disruptive? How do you go about it?
All right, so usually there's two ways to attack that. You could slide the line his way, which kind of puts the line in a disadvantage because then you have linebackers on the other side, and then you're gonna put your freaking running back one-on-one with the linebacker coming off the edge. And running backs, they're 50-50. They're either going to block it or they're not. So you could send the running back his way, chip him. You could slide the line his way. The quarterback needs to know exactly where that man is at any play because he could switch the line. He could slide the line his way if he wants to, right? Or you could put the tight end on his side wherever he's at, and then kind of change up your offense. But those are the three ways you could attack something like that. And that's usually what happens. When I played at Green Bay, we had Warren Sapp and when we played Bryant Young, Warren Sapp, Luther Ellis, we would slide the line to those guys because they were so good. It was hard to block those guys one-on-one. So, we'll be like, okay, we'll slide it one time, we'll slide away, but then we'll bring the running back into that hole and we'll chip.
Sometimes the tight end, putting the tight end out there and having him just get a little piece of that
just
guy.
A piece, just restart his feet.
Knock him off stride a little bit, gives you an extra half a second. In the NFL, that could be a lot of time.
We saw what happened in Thursday night where guys were trying to get a little bit of a jump start with Ronnie Stanley and I believe it was Jawan Taylor is his name for the Chiefs right tackle. There was a lot of Marco, I feel like that didn't happen as much back in the day where there's such an emphasis now, especially in the NFL, for these tackles to get as far off the ball, line up as far off the ball as they can. And then they're like almost false starting. Do you think that's a product of just how insane these defensive ends are now?
The game is just so much faster now. Back in the days when I played, those defensive ends were a lot bigger. They were quick, they were fast, but not these freaking racehorses we have now that they can beat you on the first step. So it seems like the offensive tackles of today are getting much bigger. It's 6'8", 330 pounds.
Marco, how about us talk about the Eagles' offensive line on Friday?
They're tremendous.
Their center is 320 pounds.
And it looks tiny in there.
He looks like a little kid out there.
So,
back to this 370. We have Eagles have two guys on their team that are 375 pounds. And then you have a right tackle who's 6'9", and Mekhi Becton makes him look small.
It's crazy.
I got to go. I got to talk about Marco here. So, he's talking about a couple of names he just threw out there: Warren Sapp, Luther Ellis. So there's a guy here who played in the NFC Central in the mid '90s, and just imagine those D linemen I just talked to you about. Then you throw in the John Randall.
Oh. How are those matchups with John Randall?
Games a year he's going against these savages.
So it says John Randall twice a year, Warren Sapp twice a year, Luther Ellis twice a
Flanagan.
year. Jim Flanagan for the Bears. Then like Bryant Young for the San Francisco 49ers, because it always felt like we were playing the 49ers for our playoff team. So I had a full. It was stressful every week, man. There was no rest for me.
A year versus that. You were happy to line up against some other teams that didn't have those studs.
Oh man, that was an easy day for me. But really, there's really no easy day in the NFL. You got to bring it freaking.
Yeah.
You got to get ready to work.
Everybody is elite. And then talk about in college. Some people are saying, hey, with the Bowling Green situation, we saw Northern Illinois upset
How about
Notre Dame. That was something. Notre Dame's getting a lot of heat going off the field. Their fans were booing them, saying they suck and other choice words.
Frauds.
And yeah. So
We were very lucky.
we
They
were the
took a
lucky.
lot of pressure
They
off
did.
the Lions this week.
Exactly. Even though we still won, they took all the heat off of us actually falling to a MAC team. But but what people say is, hey, they're on scholarship too. I know MAC is a lower level, but these guys on scholarship, and we were talking about earlier,
Good football, bud.
yeah, they're through NIL and transfer portal. They are better and better players all around college football now.
Well, Marco played with the offensive line for the Packers. And you played when you get to the Cowboys. You played the same guys next to you for 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what.
what is
they had 20
yeah,
returning
but,
starters.
Gelling, when you get to gel with an offensive line, because it's 5 guys moving as one, that's the only position or anything in sports that it's like that. What is that like when that offensive unit is moving as one?
Well, it's just, you kind of get to gel as a unit. You trust the guy next to you, and you guys get to the point where you're on the same wavelength with your language, what the calls you're making. He already knows what the call is, so you can dummy call it, and he'll get it. If you put a new guy in there, his technique is different. He's scared. He doesn't know the language. I mean, so it's disruptive because you kind of have to look out for him too. Now you have to do your job and make sure he doesn't screw up because that affects you. So those guys have been playing together for a couple of years. They have the advantage, especially if they're senior guys, 5th-year guys. They're gonna be ready to come and play. They're seniors. They understand the game. But you look at this Penn State Bowling Green game. Penn State goes to West Virginia, and I feel like, okay, West Virginia, they're not a pushover. We're a little scared. We need to prepare. We got out there. We get the job done. Hostile environment. Then they come home, and you're like, oh, thank God we got Bowling Green. These guys, we're gonna beat these guys. You look at the point spread. I think it was like 35 or something crazy like that. You're like, oh, man. So there's a sometimes, not all the players, but sometimes the players relax. When you relax, that's the most dangerous thing because you take almost your win for granted. And if you do that, you're going to get exposed and you might even lose the game. Like, look, Notre Dame, I'll tell you what, nobody in Notre Dame, Bill, would think that they were going to lose that game yesterday, and they did, the way they did. That puts a lot of pressure on the coach, on the school. Penn State, we survived yesterday. It's
what I love?
Lesson learned.
Is when they have these big upsets from these smaller schools upsetting these larger schools, like Northern Illinois beating Notre Dame. Is that Notre Dame has to stroke Northern Illinois probably a $2 million check and say, hey, thanks for the usually it's a $2 million to buy a win, but now they're paying Northern Illinois $2 million. And Northern Illinois hung an L on them.
That is always the worst thing. I got to pay you $2 million, and you handed me a loss, and now our fans hate us because of you too.
But that just doesn't affect. I mean, that's going to affect Notre Dame, even in the recruiting world. I'm telling you right now, recruits are looking at Notre Dame, going, "Yeah, no, I'm not quite sure I want to go there now because there's some stuff going on. They lost to Northern Illinois, and I don't know if I want to go there." Just remember what happened here at Penn State when we lost to, was it Eastern Michigan? Was it?
Ohio,
was it?
Bill?
Ohio
Bill's opening game. Us?
Yeah, Penn State lost.
Like our team?
No, not us.
No. Bill O'Brien's first game was.
It was Bill O'Brien, and then there was Temple 2015 that we lost at Temple.
The 2012 game that was Bill O'Brien's first game. We lost to Ohio. Oh, no. You're talking about Kirpakis' 98 or 2000 team lost to Toledo.
Well, listen,
this is just rough
a
got over Penn State.
Let me tell you, we lose to a program like that. It has some lasting effect on your program. Like it's like it takes you a while to come back from that.
What you got?
Marco?
What do you got?
Okay, so what did Notre Dame do when Brian Allen, or not? Brian Kelly when he left? Okay, the students and the athletes, the the players, we want this coach, the guy they have down.
Right. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I can't.
He played with Ohio State.
Yeah.
But give me an example of a team that has flourished when the student athletes pick their coach.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, so
I don't know of any.
So you're saying hiring from within, and when it's the players like him,
players like
Marcus
him,
Freeman, by the way.
The players love Marcus Freeman. Dude, they love him.
Yeah.
He's their guy.
Well,
I get it, but then they were pressuring Notre Dame to say, "Hey, we want this guy. We want him. We want him to be here. We want him to be here." it just never seems to work.
Well, I want Marco to talk about this, obviously, like a higher level. But I feel like, those assistant coaches, they're a little bit more of your friend to a certain extent than the head coach. And you spend a little bit more time with them. So now they're in a position where they're the head coach, but it's like, oh yeah, that's my buddy. We hang out, that type of thing. It's like you can't really have that type of relationship that you had now that you're the head man. But Marco, I want your
show one time. I blew his mind, and that is that you're talking about your relationship with your position coach because you guys have meetings throughout the year.
Oh, always.
2-3 times a week in the summertime.
We have like summer OTAs now.
Okay, so when Marco and I played, we would get done a spring football game, and that was the last time we would talk to our coach until football camp.
Yeah.
And then the closest person to us in our college career is your strength coach, John Thomas.
Yep.
And I know you guys have Chuck Lousy, and he's amazing, and he does all this. But you guys actually have a relationship with your position coaches because you see them so much more in the offseason. Like I'm saying, in the spring, we had 20 practices or 15 practices with our offensive line coach, with our offensive coordinator, and then it was like shut down. You wanted to practice in the summertime, it was all voluntary, set up by the players. Coaches couldn't be there. Coaches couldn't watch it. That is the biggest difference in us and you guys.
It's very different. I mean, now we basically have OTAs.
Tell him. I want to see Marco's face when you tell him about the schedule.
Nowadays, so you finish. So you said we still have the month of May off because that's non-negotiable. So we're off for May, but that's it. But after May, then you get into June, July, and August. Well, obviously August is camp, but June, July for the most part is you're working out 5 days a week with the strength staff. But then you have Tuesdays and Thursdays normally. You have an hour skill session where there's no football allowed. So you're not allowed to have football, but you do positional work with your coach, with your
we would do that on our own.
We'll be with Krautwein, the offensive line coach, and we'll be in there, doing individual drills, that type of thing, and then we'll get together as the offense and run plays on air, and the defense will be out on the cans outside running their plays. And so we do that. You get about 2 hours a week now, time allotted in the summer, where it's essentially kind of OTAs is trying to give the opportunity to fix things and get things running a little bit smoother going into the season. So there's definitely a big difference there. I got to ask, we've had like 4 comments since you guys have been on about that Indiana game. What happened in Indiana in '94? Well, I've seen like 3 different people have commented about it. What happened? Was it fine?
We were up by 28 points in the fourth quarter.
Okay, and then you guys, and
then Joe put some of the younger guys in on defense. Next thing you know, they scored 2 touchdowns, and all right, the starters are back in. And they had to put the starters back in to finish the game.
And only ended up winning by 6.
And that's what happened.
So this is before the days when every game was on television. So when people out west were voting, and they say, "Whoa, Penn State won by 6 against Indiana. Man, they must be hurt. They must be struggling." They didn't watch the game. They had no idea what happened. Actually,
there's no Twitter.
We had a punt return called back. The punt return for a touchdown called back in the fourth quarter, and an interception return for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. They were called back on typical Big Ten suspicious calls. And then they go out there, and there was a kid on our team who was from Indiana, state of Indiana, on our team. He was a walk-on. He wasn't even on scholarship, and he traveled to the game. And Joe felt like, let's get him into the game out there. And he gave up 2 long touchdown bombs in the last play of the game. They go for 2, and it's just like, man, we only won by 6 points. But a win is a win, this and that. But when you're in an arms race type of thing with the Nebraska thing, that's what happens.
And I always say this, Joe, he did.
This is he's been doing this,
but for everything that he did, he held us back. I feel like the third and fourth quarters when we were up by 20, 30, whatever it was, he would pull the starters out. He put Kachana out. He put Kerry out. He put the linemen out. And
as an offensive lineman, 9 of the 12 games we played that year, we didn't play a play into the third quarter. We were destroying people that bad. John Carter never played a second half.
Think about it.
Three games. Yes. He averaged 7.6 yards a carry.
Oh.
Imagine leaving Kajan and Kerry in there 4 quarters every game.
And then the only thing that people say, well, okay, what if one of them gets hurt? And then Joe looks like a complete schmuck. He looks like an idiot for doing it. But if Kajan is averaging 7 yards a carry, and we have our offensive line, just give him 5 more carries a game. and he would have been over 2,000 yards rushing. I mean, again, yeah, he had 1,700, and he didn't even play in the. He only played in the second half.
That's crazy.
3 times the whole season.
We Marco, I got to read you this. Michael Wargo, he said, sat next to Rivera in my first class in 1994, American Studies. He was always in class, always engaged, made me realize early what Penn State was all about. I love that. That's really cool, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That is. These guys, man, these guys, it's cool to be around.
I'm all snow, Jerry. You didn't go to
I was
class.
like, on time. I was.
Did you guys have class checkers? So now, I mean, we have class checkers where you might not always have them in your class, but you look at the roster and it's like, okay, I'm in a class by myself and I'm someone who takes care of business. I probably won't get checked. But if you look at the roster and it's like, oh, okay, that's a trouble guy right there. Oh, that's a trouble. You can bet that class is getting checked a lot. And if you don't make it, you now have a what we call a power hour. I don't know what you guys had back in the day when you missed classes, but we call it a power hour where you have an hour of.
Oh, you get thrown in the doghouse with Joe. You don't want to miss class. They caught you not going to class. They caught you not going to breakfast. Woof, my goodness. That was awful.
JT used to have, when I was in the weight room, working in the weight room, I worked on the staff from 5, 6, and 7. We would have the Sunday morning cleaning crew. So anybody who screwed up during the week, late for a meeting, late for a workout, missed a workout, Joe would put them on this list. You might have 20, 30 guys. So I remember in 05, I was working in the weight room and we had a Sunday morning cleaning list, and you had a power hour. So that was a physical beating.
Yeah.
So JT would have these guys not during the season because you didn't want to have to do an extra burden. Was Coach Franklin having these guys blow up on Sunday morning?
No, this would be like, no, you do the
season.
power hour like midweek. No, you'll do like midweek. So like on a Tuesday. I mean, it depends when you miss class, but let's say you miss class on a Thursday or a Friday. We're not talking, no Georgia or vicious stuff where you're sitting the bowl game out. If you skip a test, but the following week, you will normally pay on Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning.
Yeah, so JT would have this the Sunday morning cleaning crew, and they'd have to go and then it was so funny to me. I remember this because I'm watching Penn State beat Ohio State in the 05 game. Tom Bahali has that sack to end the game when Troy Smith has upside down on his head, fumbles the ball, Paxson recovers, and Penn State wins the game. That Sunday morning at 7 a.m., he has the game of his life. Just ended up being a first-round pick because of how well he played in that game. He was late for a class or late for a lift that week, so he's out there cleaning windows. And I'm like, man, you go from the star of the game to cleaning windows in 12 hours, guys. And it was just like, James is very good about that, just like Joe was. It's the little stuff. I mean, Joe, he was adamant about get your ass to class. Yep. You got to go to class because I learned this. Like I was a history major, so the classes I went to, you weren't really learning that much. I mean, because you got to read books, you got to do research and stuff like that. It was a history major. You know what I mean? His major was more in the class, doing that type of stuff. So we're sort of on a different scale. But, I learned late in life, probably when I got into coaching, is don't disrespect your teachers by not showing up and then going in at the end of the semester and being like, hey, I need some help. Every teacher is going to try to help you. Everyone. If you showed them the respect to show up to the class and have enough gumption to show up to the class and at least respect them enough to be in their class, they will help you out as much as they can.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Shout out Todd Kolka. He's someone that has been here for a long time. Letterman here. Yeah, yep. I mean, he was your classmate, really.
Oh, yeah.
Great guy, and he's someone that takes care of Penn State academics here and makes sure that we get to class on time. He actually coined the phrase, get your A to class. So he says that all the time now. I don't know if he –
paraphrasing, so I was allowed to say that, right?
Okay. I think you're okay. Well, we know. Hey,
I paraphrased that line, so it's actually not a comment for me. It was a paraphrase.
Well, I'm sure you've had a lot of issues with saying things on live radio, I'm sure, in the past. So, yeah, I'm sure you've dealt with that. It's all right. We'll accept you. We'll accept you for how you are. Well, guys, real quick, let's talk a little bit about this game, but let's talk about the offensive line. We got 3 former Penn State offensive linemen here. We played eight offensive linemen in the game yesterday, and that's not a rotate because we just want to or because we were up. It was a tight game. What is your guys' thought process on rotating offensive linemen? Clearly, Coach Trout feels like he's got a bunch of guys that can play, but I mean, real quick, I'll just say I had to switch off with Hunter Norzad my freshman year at left guard. And it was every 2 drives we would swap out. And that was really hard on my mental because, number one, I was looking over my shoulder. I was like, if I mess up, he's going to start. They're going to hate me. I got no more opportunity. But number 2, it was so hard to get into a rhythm and start to feel that defensive lineman. Hey, he's like, likes to start to revert to this move on 3rd down, or when he feels my weight go here, he has a really good counter move. You start to miss out on some of those things just because you're not in the entire game. So I want your guys' take on Coach Trout playing 8 offensive linemen, which was like Anthony Donka and Nolan Rucci kind of switched out at right tackle. Nolan Rucci then played some at left tackle for Drew Shelton, and then JB Nelson also came in the game at left guard. And then we saw some young Cooper Cousins, who was thought to be the next guy on this offensive line. But what's your guys' take on playing 8 offensive linemen and consistently rotating throughout a game?
Well, definitely, I agree with you. It's very hard when you get rotated in there. I was a guy that, I think my success, you had to leave me in the game because I want to become part of the game. I want to get mental in the game and really get into a nice rhythm. And if you start pulling me out and rotating with another guy, you get out, you're on the sideline, your body gets cold, your back starts getting tight, your knees start getting tight. Then they throw you back in, and it's almost like you got to rewarm your body up, and you got to get the mentality part of it has to sink in back in. So if he's rotating guys, that's telling me that they're really not sure if they're starters yet. They're trying to see who's got the willpower and the mental fortitude to be the starter. And I could see that probably not happening for the rest of the year. Once they get their 5 guys set, I can see them just saying, okay, you 5, and we got 3 good reserves just in case something happens. But I don't recommend that.
You don't recommend it, but it's nice getting some guys some live opportunities out there.
It's always nice.
You're not going to know how a guy is until you put him into a live action. Yep. There are gamers, there are practice guys. Marco will tell you he's seen 1,000 different players coming in and out of the NFL who they look great on paper and they're doing great in practice. But then you put them into a game and they don't understand the game and they just get run out. They just get completely wore out by defensive linemen. I don't mind as a coach, I don't mind the getting more guys ready to play in live game opportunities. But I'm with both of you, and that is that, you said something I don't want to mess up because if I mess up, he's going to pull me out of the game and Hunter's going to play this game. And I don't want that to happen. And then you've heard me say it a billion times, Landon, and that is offensive line is 90% about confidence. If you are confident in yourself and how you play the game, that's why guys who aren't that good, if they're very confident, they can still compensate. But if you're not confident in your game or in what you're doing and you're playing hesitant, you're done. You're totally done. So I can see coming in and out of the game, and that's the worst part is not being part of the game. Like, what Marco goes in, me and Marco were switching in and out. I lead the team down. We get a field goal. Marco gets a touchdown. Then they can pull Marco out of the game and put me back in there. It's like, man, he's trying to get a little flow, a little momentum going here, and it's like it can't happen.
Yep,
it stinks.
You're right, and then there's the depth piece of it as well.
It's Bowling Green, so Trout definitely went in there saying, you know what, I want to get these guys some live ops. And I don't think Trout Wayne figured it was only going to be a less than a touchdown game at the end. But if he went in with that game plan was to get some of his guys some experience, I understand and I can appreciate that as a coach. But as a player, it does stink. Yeah,
I agree. But it does, like I said, it builds depth for the future. And obviously you don't ever want injuries, but when you play offensive line in the Big Ten, it's a very good likelihood that everybody that starts the season is not going to make it to the end. So you start getting guys comfortable. Were they able to jump around at a couple different positions? And that's something I want to talk to you guys too.
Fly Marco win in 2 weeks, man.
Yeah. We're going to have to get him.
This is great.
This is too good. So
I see you got a whole plate of notes right there. We haven't talked about 3.
I know. Hey, who cares?
I'll go offensive line.
Yeah, this is about offensive line. This is about Penn State offensive linemen right here. So I want to talk to you guys about how it feels as an offensive lineman when you're running the ball well. We ran the ball pretty well. We had on the ground, we went for 234 yards on the ground, gave up 2 sacks. Now, the sacks weren't too bad. We gave no sacks last year. But when you come in, and we talked about this a little bit, when you come in, this offensive line is young. We got 3 new starters. When you go into hostile environment against West Virginia, and
we are huge. We talked about the Eagles' offensive line. Mark, how big is our offensive line? It's pretty big. Michelle's 325 pounds.
Have you seen Anthony Donka also? Yeah. They're huge. They're massive people.
They don't look fat. They do not look sloppy. So I cut you off there, but I want to put that in there of how big our guys are and athletic, bro.
I think I may have completely lost my train of thought. I'm not going to lie. I'll blame Goon on that one. But it's
the head slaps you took back in the day.
Exactly. That's what it was. I'll blame
an excuse. I got thrown across the room and dropped on my head a couple hundred times as a kid. So
clearly, excuse. We could tell. But no, one thing that is interesting too, and obviously I don't, I know you guys, I know Marco, you're not super follow it super close, but Nolan Rucci's dad, player Todd Rucci. Do you guys ever cross over with Todd at all?
2 years.
2 years? Okay.
We lived with him for a summer.
Oh my God, look at that. Look, this is the crossover episode, man. This is
Absolutely.
awesome. But, so Nolan Rucci came in and him and Anthony Donker are battling out right tackle. And Anthony Donker played really well as a freshman last year, played in the Peach Bowl game because Caden Wallace decided not really to – he played the first quarter and then was out. Now, this was Anthony Donker's first action.
Don't start talking to us about the ball opt-outs. Okay, good.
Well, we won't have to get into that. But I want to talk
that.
to Mark about this. The Anthony Donker, and this is when I was still kind of playing that year. Anthony Donker was playing left guard all year as a true freshman. And then he turned around in bowl prep, and they put him at right tackle as a true freshman, going from left guard to right tackle. And he balled out, no pressures, no sacks, was pancaking dudes on the defensive line. I don't mean to go back to last year, but I mean, can you talk about how difficult that is to go not only switch sides, but, also from guard to tackle? It gets me excited about this Anthony Donker.
About long and short with him right now. It blown his mind.
Yeah, so that's extremely tough. And if he was able to do that, which he did, and he proved that he could play that right tackle, then that tells me he's a pretty good offensive lineman because going from left guard, you going from left guard to right tackle, all your muscle memory and your quick twitch that you've been developing that year has everything to do with the left guard side. Now you're going to switch that to right. Then you're going to switch your stance. Your other hand is coming down. Now you're pass setting at a wider, smaller defensive end, more athletic than you are, and so he's got to retrain himself and retrain his body and basically become a whole different player. And he was able to do that in such a short time. I mean, that tells me he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
So when we actually played long and short. Okay, so Marco would at one play be in the left guard, but in the next play he might be the right guard.
Seriously, okay, that's what
That was short. So long side was
okay.
a tight end line.
Yeah.
Really?
So if we went tight left or I right, the tight end went to that side, and I was always the tight end tackle. And Marco was always the short guard, which means there was no tight end on his side.
That's so interesting.
So
you guys would move your
right,
position.
we would drop. I would be a right tackle for one play, and the next play I'm a left tackle. Now we didn't even drop our left hands down when we played left side. We played from the right hand stance. Joe didn't want us changing our stances. So now you're talking
Why
about
does it matter?
Well, playing with the left hand down is a little bit different, but he would, yeah.
It is. Well, I'm just saying. I'm sure
he would rather you better just have. Let's learn how to play with your right hand down on the ground. We don't need to worry about putting your left hand down.
Well, I was literally going to ask you guys. I was going to say because Coach Trout does a lot of cross training where he makes sure guys can play multiple positions on the offensive line.
Marco played tackle his sophomore year.
Really?
And then he played guard. We started in '94. In '93, Marco was a tackle.
Okay.
I wasn't ready. I was an immature. I was an idiot.
Yeah, you weren't ready to go. You were BSing in class probably. And
that's what I was doing. Yep. Major.
There you go.
BSer.
That makes sense.
No, but I mean, think about like what we're saying about a guy having to learn both sides, right and left, and this and that. But if you play long and short, you have one offense to learn, and you can run both offenses from the right or the left.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a pitch out to the long side of the field, say you're on the left hash, you want to go pitch to the right. To the wider side of the field, you just line us up on the right tight end. But if you want to run on the short side of the field, you could do that too. And you learn double the offense with one position. So,
yeah.
And it was tough going from right to left and stuff like that from play to play. And, yeah.
Marco, in the NFL, did you guys cross-train? Did you play multiple positions as an offensive lineman? It's a little bit different too because you don't have as much depth in the NFL. You got to be able to play more.
In the NFL, you're lucky if they keep 8 offensive linemen. They would like to keep 9. On the squad, you have basically your 5 starters, and then you always have a backup center, and then you always want to keep at least 2 tackles. And if the guard is pretty good, that'd be the last guy. That would be either number 8 or number 9. But no, once you set your side. Like I played, I think in '98, I was the left guard for the Packers, and then in '99. We got a new offensive line coach, and he was like, you know what, I need you at the right side because that's you're a bigger body, and I need you to compete with those bigger defensive tackles. And I'm like, gee, thanks. And that's when I ended up with
appreciate that,
Warren and John and all those guys twice a year for almost my entire career. But no, once they always once they keep you in a spot, they're going to keep you there. And if you become a pretty good player at that spot, they're not going to move you. You know, basically, I was the backup emergency center, so I would be the starting right guard, and I would be the emergency backup center. So I would be like the third center. If the first two guys got hurt, I would switch over and snap the ball. But they didn't want. If I got to that point, we were in trouble.
Yeah, you're not in a good place.
Yeah.
Did you play tackle and guard here at all? Did you ever? Okay, so we all did that. We all played tackle. Did you start out? How was that?
Started off
For you?
at guard. Well, honestly,
Start off at guard.
it's pretty funny. I didn't play offense in high school.
Really?
I never played offense until I came to Penn State. So I was always sitting there. I was like, people were like, why did it take you 3 years to get on the field? And I'm like, dude, I don't know how to play the position.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of technique that goes into playing offensive tackle and or offensive guard. So the easiest way I explain the difference in offensive tackle and guard is think about a fight. The inside, the centers and the guards, they're in knife fights. They're in there tight, and they're just hacking and beating each other up and this and that. Where the offensive tackles are out there playing against the stallions out on the outside, they're gunfighters. They're playing out in their own little island. They're playing with a little bit of distance and stuff like that. So, I mean, you got to take a guy like Marco, and you know, he's inside slugging it out with John Randall and Warren Sapp and these guys, and then you got to, you have an offensive tackle. He's out there, but you might be 385 pounds, and you got to go against guys 220 running the 4.4, 240 anymore. So the tackles, you got to play a little bit of distance. There's a little bit of finesse to playing the offensive tackle, but the inside, that was playing in the interior offensive line is an absolute war.
It is. I think it's a completely different game. Oh my God, it's so different. And I kind of enjoy. That's why it was so much easier to pass block from the guard position because they're just right there. You're in a phone booth. But I'll tell you what, going against an elite defensive tackle consistently. I remember I had to go against Mozzie Smith for Michigan, and he was about 330 pounds and one of the scariest looking dudes I've ever seen. Does he start for the Cowboys now? I think Mozzie Smith is on the Cowboys. Yeah. I think he gets a lot of playing time for you guys.
First round pick.
Yeah, and you go against a big defensive tackle down in the middle, you feel that after those games end. That is for sure. Now, I want to ask about this. I want to talk this question that I got in the chat about. I don't know if you guys were watching the Colorado game, but Travis Hunter, their star wide receiver, cornerback, started throwing a fit because when nothing's going right there, and in those type of teams when they're all rah hype.
We were so upset watching that. I just can't believe.
I think everybody was hate watching Colorado and was rejoicing in our boy Matt Rule. Matt Rule took care. Yeah, absolutely, it should. If they want to bring those expectations on them, and the things that Shador and Travis say and Dion, you got to back it up. Now, the question was basically, have you guys ever seen fights within the team? Like, basically Travis, he was yelling at Deion Sanders. I mean, he was yelling and he ripped his helmet off and kind of almost threw it down. And he had 5 receptions when he was doing this. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And you can see there was times where you could see him on TV scream to Shador, "Give me the ball." And so, I just want to ask, like, Marco, I don't want you to put anybody out there, but is there times you've been around teams, and Goon, where, whether that's here or whether that's in the NFL, where is it passion? You get to excuse that as passion. Hey, that guy just wants to win. Or are they really just like kind of a problem child?
Well, I'll say this, but the atmosphere and the culture of Colorado looks like there's a problem. There's a problem there. And I knew this was going to happen. As soon as they start losing and get into difficult situations, those players are going to turn on themselves. They're going to turn on the coaching staff because there's really no discipline there. It's all a freaking show. It's hoopla. And it's really, I'm not a fan of it, but yes, I've been in the locker room where guys do get emotional. Football's a very emotional game. And I mean, the higher level you play, the more competitive the guys in the locker room are. And sometimes, some guys get up and slam their the fist on the table and challenge other guys in the locker room to pick up their play. And it's because we all want to win and we all deserve, we want everybody to play their best football. And sometimes, you got to get after some people to get them going. And usually those are your team leaders, those guys that just will not quit, will play every down, doesn't matter if they're hurt. I'll give you an example. Brett Favre, he never missed a game. He was one of those guys, he's a tremendous leader. That guy, no matter what, he was always up there. And then we had other guys like Leroy Butler who would slam his fists on the table and be like, come on, guys, we need to get out there. We need to do this and this and this. And another guy that you guys all know, he was a Philadelphia Eagles here, but thank God he went to Green Bay, was Mr. Reggie White. That guy, when he spoke, everybody listened, and because who he was and how he played. and the respect he carried. But yeah, he did get after a few guys because those guys were not holding their side of it.
Yeah.
One thing about Reggie, I practiced with Reggie a long time against him, and my rule with Reggie was don't get him angry. I'm like, don't do nothing stupid to get him angry, and we'll have a good day.
Marco walking in practice. God bless you, Reggie. God bless you. I love you. I love
Yeah,
you.
right. You're walking on
God
eggshells
bless you,
around
Reggie.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I want to. Did you guys ever have any type of game like Bowling Green yesterday where you kind of play down to the opponent and then you ended up winning? But was there any type of those games that you guys had, even with that potent offense?
Not 94, 95. And if anybody tunes into me in the Ironhead show during the week, and that was okay. I'm watching that Florida State game versus Georgia Tech in Ireland, and I'm witnessing it. And I said it on the radio show before, and I said, okay, this is the problem that's going to happen right now: is that Florida State is going to go out there and try and prove every naysayer wrong because they did not get elected to the college football playoff last year. So we played Texas Tech opening game in 1995. The whole summer we were just projecting. Prove them wrong, prove them wrong, prove them wrong, prove them wrong. They were wrong not letting us play in the national title game. They were wrong for not giving us the national title. So we go out there expecting to just smack around Texas Tech like no man's business because we were a 20-point favorite and this and that, and we think it's 1994 and we're just going to roll all over people. Texas Tech came out with Zach Thompson, little linebacker, and beat the tar out of us.
They did. Oh my gosh.
So we were not ready. We were going out there. And the way we went out there was we're going to prove everybody wrong last year because we're this good. And that was the worst thing you could possibly do because we overlooked Texas Tech. Florida State overlooked Georgia Tech last week. They went out there and said, you know what, we're going to prove everybody wrong. So we go out and play against Texas Tech. And thank God we won the game. We won 21-20 on the last second field goal. And that was the thing is that it was like, oh, we got to prove everybody wrong last year. And that's what we were trying to do. And every team is different. It's 1994. It was that team was gone. Kerry, Kyle, Bucky Greeley, Kijana, they were gone. We had all four of the offensive line back. We had Bobby Ingram back. We had our couple of the running backs. We were good. But the 94, 95 teams were different teams. And then when we finally, get to what we were good at, we were very good at running the ball. And Wally was back there throwing, but we didn't have that dynamic of a Kerry and Kijana type of thing. But we had a very good offensive line, and we throughout the year we ended up winning. I think we went 10-2, 9-3, I think, or something like that. But that was the thing that happened in our opening game was we overlooked Texas Tech because we were sitting there trying to prove that all 1994 when we got screwed, we're going to prove everybody wrong. And Texas Tech came in here and said, we're not going to listen to that. We don't care. We're going to smack you right in the teeth. And they did. And thank God we came off the mat a little bit and we ended up winning the game. But that's when you realize, okay, 94 is over. This is a whole new team.
Yeah. No, that realization, that is really a thing. Because I remember when we came back from the Rose Bowl, hey, I think it's a group of guys. There's only 2 Rose Bowl, Penn State winners. So you guys and me over here. So living a good life. But when we came back from that 2022 Rose Bowl between PJ Mustapher, Sean Clifford, Jair Brown, I mean, we had some real leaders right there on that team. That was some real stuff right there. I remember coming in after we flew back, we had the week off, and then we came into State College for that night meeting Sunday night before the semester started. And I remember sitting in the room and kind of looking around, and it was like, oh, crap. I was like, where are the leaders at? Like, where, guys figured it out. Guys came along. But, I mean, that's a real thing. When you move on to that next team and you're not kind of ready for it, and it's like, shoot, we just lost all of our top guys. We're going to have some guys.
You got to find your leaders because they didn't step up before. Another great example of that is when I was coaching here in 2005, the 3 captains of the 2005 team were Michael Robinson, Alan Zamitis, and Paul Pleslesnik. So Zamitis and Michael were 2 of the best leaders I've ever seen. People were scared of those 2. Offensive linemen they would buckle around those. I mean, honest to God, they were great leaders. Puz didn't have to say a word. Okay, when Michael and Alan retire, when they go to the NFL, now Puz is there. He's supposed to be the leader, and Puz was not. There are 2 types of leaders. There's the leader on the field, and there's a leader in the locker room. And on the all-state, I mean, that's the thing. You got a guy who's going to be. I mean, some guys are not rah-rah guys. They're not going to sit there and do the fire and brimstone speech and stuff like that, pound the table and stuff like that. They're just going to say, follow me. I'm going to lead you guys into battle. And we're going to fight. You learn by check me out, watch me. I'm going to lead for my position and this and that. And that's when you got to find a team that you got to find your leaders then and find them quick. But they will appear. But at first, it's a little awkward trying to find those guys when you had such strong leadership before.
It did, yeah. Oh, it was the best leadership I've ever been around. I've never, and you, like you said, PJ was the guy that always talked, but everybody wanted to listen. But it was really Jair Brown who was killing it for the 49ers right now. I think he's going to be in the league for a long time. When he would talk, he didn't talk super often. We call him the voice of the streets. That was what we called him. You guys don't even get the reference. Do you know who Little Dirk is? Any chance? Not a shot. Anyway, but let's throw that to the side, man. I'm giving a rap lesson in your rap culture. No, but so
Billy in the streets like you were doing yesterday in town.
I had a good time.
I know you
Shout out. We were going around. I was giving out Champs Downtown T-shirts. Shout out Champs. But it said it kind of quiet. We're right now in the student bookstore, guys. We will be here every home game Sunday, 10 to 11 a.m.
We're on overtime, by the way.
Oh yeah, we're complete on overtime. Boost texted me, asked if we go for another 15. Is that all right?
Are we on the air?
No, we're still on air. Yes, for 15 more minutes. If you guys
on the Fox,
we're still on the Fox.
Oh, okay, cool.
We're live on my YouTube. We're still on the Fox, and I think the fans are enjoying this one. It was supposed to be a pregame show,
as long as Lemon's buying lunch here, we'll work.
We're good. And then Marco came by, and I said, this is an offensive line show. I was like, forget Bowling Green. No one cares. It's over, and we're in the bye week. We got opportunity to talk some cool stuff here. So I'm really enjoying this, talking old school, new school.
I want to know. Were you there the whole time with Favre, or did you have Rodgers?
No, when Rodgers came, he came in 05. I left to Dallas in 05.
Okay, so you never had you just had Brett your whole career.
Yeah, Brett.
And then you go to Tony Romo.
Yeah, I had Brett, Drew Bledsoe for half of the year in 05. Then Romo took over, and then it was Romo. Yeah.
Okay,
some serious leadership right there, but
yeah, that's some. So who would you say was the best leader you ever played with in the NFL?
Early on, it was probably Reggie. Reggie was the commanding voice in the locker room and on the field with Green Bay. Brett he's more of that quiet leader on the field. He's not a real rah guy, but he's on the field. He's hands down the best leader.
You go through a wall.
Yeah. And then you have. Drew. A lot of guys looked up to Drew Bledsoe because of who he was, and everybody considered him a good quarterback. Like he could really, out of all the quarterbacks, he to me was the most accurate quarterback that I've played with. Brett was a great quarterback, but sometimes he was a little wild with the ball. Drew Bledsoe, he was a little methodical. He was a little slow release, but he could get that ball down there and thread that needle. And then Tony was a lot like Brett. He was a little wild. He just make things happen out of the pocket all the time. But he also was a good leader, but not like Drew and Brett.
Field leader, locker room leader type of guys.
Yeah, and then lead by example. The guys that was a big. I think Dom DeLucas might be one of the best examples of that. That he came in. He was in my class. He originally was supposed to be in the 2020 class. He tears his ACL. Now our team captain.
He still played in the state title game with it.
So yeah, Marco. So you got to listen to this story. Dom DeLuca. He tears his ACL in the state championship game at halftime. Goes on to score 3 touchdowns on a torn ACL. He's playing quarterback, wide receiver, safety. The whole thing. And next thing you know, gets his scholarship kind of pulled from Penn State and kind of everywhere. Not able to have scholarships anymore. He has to take a year to rehab. Ends up walking on at Penn State. Reclassifies into the 2021 class. Comes in, busts his butt. Next thing you know, he is put on scholarship at the Rose Bowl while we're at the Rose Bowl. And then not even just, 3 or 4 months later is then named one of the team captains for the special teams. So and it was all because he just put his head down and he worked his butt off and everybody saw it. And those are the guys you respect the most out of anybody. So I think I need to tell that story more, but not enough people know the story of Dom DeLuca and why I think he is one of the most influential captains here in a long time, just because there is so much respect for him. And then our guy, Nick Dawkins, man, that we had him on, he might be.
Bro, I'm honest to God. I'm sitting there saying, you know what? Sky's the limit for that cat, man. He was on the show last week. He had a BlueWhitePlayerShow.com. That's my Monday Night Players show.
Check it out. We got Tyler Warren coming in this week
right now. I listened to Doc last week, and I was telling people this story. I had Psycho T's dad at my tailgate yesterday. And he watched it, and he goes, "Man, I heard what you said about me." And he goes, "Thanks, man," because Aeneas and Nick were like, "Oh, that's his dad. His dad's even psychoer than T." And that was pretty funny. He showed up yesterday, so
that's what we call Tyler, by the way. Tyler Warren. He is the nicest, kindest human off the field, and he puts on the helmet. He's Psycho T. For those that do not know, sorry, continue.
Probably like a Witten for you.
That's how Jason Witten
So
was.
it's two different types of guys. We prim and proper, and then he just clicks over.
It's a different type of animal on the field.
So you know,
talking about a different type of guy. Remember Mark D'Onofrio?
Oh my God, that's our true freshman year. We were here. D'Onofrio, I believe, is at Stanford right now as a football coach. D'Onof,
he's the only player that I ever saw
psycho.
talk back to Joe.
He was nuts. I mean, he was absolutely nuts. We would sit there. We like me and Marco came in and like it was like Joe's greatest recruiting class in the history of his career. And that's the truth. And we went in there and we go there and we all see Joe as this father figure, this and that. The old man just used to ride D'Onofrio. D'Onofrio used to bring it back at
Just
him.
give it right back.
Just right. I mean,
would people do that to Joe normally?
Joe respected it. Joe sort of respected him a little bit, like not a little bit, but he respected him. But D'Onofrio was just off his rocker, dude. Like we'd be in like pregame warmups, and he'd be sitting there, and he had like the Mike Singletary eyes. That's how he was playing. You don't remember? I mean, I know you don't.
Oh, I know Mike Singletary. Yeah, I know.
So he's out there. He's playing middle linebacker, and he's just complete psych. He's a nut. And then the post game, before the game, he's thrown up like 95 times.
Oh man,
he has himself so churned up and so we're worked into a frenzy that he's throwing up. So our freshman year, our first game at Penn State was we had an away game at the kickoff classic. So Marco and I, you may have traveled because you were from New York. Did you go to the Georgia Tech game? Yeah, you went. Yeah. So I didn't go. So the first game I dressed for was Penn State was our first home game when we dropped 81 on Cincinnati, beat them 81-0. And then we're sitting there like, oh man, we're getting ready to play. We're going to go play. And Joe's like, you guys are all red shirt. And we're like, hey, because the red shirt we're all different now.
Yeah, right.
And after the game, we're in the locker room and we're like, me and Mark are like, dude, I don't want to dress anymore. We're not going to play. What the hell? I don't want to dress. I want to go out the night before. I want to go out the tailgate right now. Let's go, So we're post game. We're all getting ready to shower and stuff like that. And D'Onofrio was doing a radio interview, and he's like, yeah, and he just starts throwing up. He's post game. He's still so churned up. We won 81-0. I was like, dude, you're out of the game in the first quarter. Why are you still so wound up, man?
Dude, like real scary dude. My freshman year, I was like, yeah, I'm not touching that guy. Nuts, man.
And then these guys, we talk about like how good our '94 offense was, and we laugh. Because you get a guy like D'Onofrio, and he will tell you, and Al Gold will tell you, all these guys that were freshmen, we were freshmen, they were seniors, and they were like, dude, our scout team was the '94 offense, and we'd be working them on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we knew that you just take it back a lot on Thursday. You don't make the guys look good, get them all fired up to play the game because they're carrying the flag onto the field for us.
Wait, do you guys have real practices on Thursdays? Like pads?
Half tops.
Still,
how much shoulder pad?
See, tops is just Wednesdays now. Now it's only one day of true full. It's completely different. It's crazy out there.
Different.
Thursdays now is a full walkthrough, no sweat, no nothing. Don't barely lift a finger. We're just walking through the place. Friday is then quicker. It's fast paced. So Thursday you're not supposed to sweat. It's supposed to be calm. You're going through it. There's no talking, none of that.
No sweat.
And then,
I sweat in the shower.
That's
Come on, you can tell me how come they can't sweat.
So your practice is Tuesday
and Wednesday. It's full pads on Tuesday, and then Wednesday is basically shells.
Now Monday is their day off.
Monday's day off.
So Sunday they're working right now.
Yeah, they are in there. They'll be in there in about an hour. And then they're there all day.
The old man would tell us, get the hell out of here. I don't want to see you. Yeah. So Sunday was our day. Go to church.
See, that's
take
nice.
your vitamins.
You got to watch NFL ball.
Yeah. That's the thing. He wanted us doing that.
Oh, that's awesome. Because look, now you are in the facility from literally when games kick off.
I mean,
1 to 6:30.
It's not my decision, but it is what it is. But
it sucks.
I wouldn't be happy with it.
I love it. I'm a diehard Steelers fan. So
There you go, Marco. Ready to go? Yes. we got a towel.
That's all right. Just get Jeff in here, then we'll be good. We'll Exactly.
Terrible towel. Oi, double oi, 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 oi.
So you guys work out on Sundays and have
So yeah,
meetings, watch the tape?
so we'll give a quick rundown. We got 5 minutes left. So Sundays now for us. So that first day after the game, you come in and everybody kind of gets in the hot tubs, cold tubs. You take care of the little things that happen from the game. Then you either have film breakdown. Offense will have film breakdown. Defense goes and lifts. And it's kind of a recovery lift. There's a bunch of recovery circuits where you're rolling out, you're stretching, and then you do a decent mental squad. You have an intense lift, scout team. You have a very intense lift, followed by, so you do that, then you swap. So film and lift, and then if you're offense, defense, then you swap, and then you go out to practice. Well, if you are, you played in the game, if you played anywhere over 8 to 10 snaps, you're just in your jersey and you're doing corrections, that type of thing, fixing everything on the field that went wrong on Saturday. Well, if you didn't play in the game, you're full pads, and there is a D squad scout team scrimmage at the end of practice on Sunday nights. And the older guys will stick around, and it's ritual, and it's kind of funny, and guys are screaming, and it's bad football because it's a bunch of scout team guys that all week they have to pretend to be someone else. So the scout team has to, for this past week, the scout team offense had to pretend to be Bowling Green's offense. So they don't even really get to run our plays, and then you put them out there, and it is scout team versus scout team, and
they're running our plays then.
But they're running our plays now. We're running our plays.
We were freshmen. We didn't know the offense.
No.
You don't know the offense, and then and they put you. They hold a card up for the D squad, like you guys call it, and then sit there and say, okay, I'm gonna ram block this guy. I'm hooking this guy. We're gonna bump and scoop block here, this and that. The receivers know their routes, and then you go out there. They're gonna tell you to run, past 40 posts, and you're like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? They run a 641 screen short. You're like, what am I doing here? I have no idea. Where's the card at? And you don't have the confidence. You look bad, and it beats you up a little bit mentally. You're like, man, I'm never going to play here. I'm never going to play here.
Listen, we're 3 offensive line. We got to talk about this. Have you ever went up to the line and you don't know your assignment, and you say, hey, what's the play? What's the play? And nobody tells you. Have you guys ever had that? I feel like that's a constant. Everybody here, at least,
whole freshman year, we had no idea what the offense was.
Look over.
Actually, what plagued me was the snap count.
Oh God!
You get up to the line, you're like, oh man, and so you gotta look over. Hey, Frank, what's it on?
Yep.
What's it on? Yeah, I don't know.
Frank, what's it on?
And it wasn't like rocket science. So I'd turn to Kerry and be like, hey, what's the count? He'd be like, Tuesday. That means 2. Monday was 1. Wednesday be 3. I mean, I know the defensive players aren't the smartest people in the world, but I'm pretty sure they can figure out what Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday means.
Yeah, it won't take
the quarterback's telling your offensive tackle.
So, last thing I want to get into, we got like 4 minutes left, real quick. I want to talk about the differences between your guys' bye week to our bye week now. So, I'll just give you a quick rundown. There are still practices all week. You have the Monday off, so they're going to have this Monday off, but then you come back Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, the coaches go out of town. They're going to recruit pretty much all week, so it's a lot of GA. Assistant coaches led practice, analyst practice. So
that's analysts aren't allowed on the road. You're only allowed to have 10 coaches actually on the road recruiting.
Interesting. Fun fact there. That was good. Way to pull that out there, man. So I think you're right. There's definitely a number. You can only have a certain amount. I think you're right, or else they do it. They send other people
you can have
out.
as many coaches as you want now, but you only have somebody on the road recruiting.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Okay, I appreciate that insight from Grun. So that's how the week. So
Totally
your practice.
I wouldn't go to the bank.
It
sounded really good.
Okay.
I'm a history major, so I'm a professional BSer. So go ahead. I know we're.
Hopefully, we get sued now. we're just spewing stuff on air, Goon. No, so the whole week and the practices are lighter. How the practices are shaped is there's not as many team periods, so it's a lot more of individual work. And then on top of that, about half of the practice, once again, those D squad, those practice squad guys are doing heavy, full speed contact at the end of each practice. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there is a D squad scrimmage every single night at the end.
It might change
so that's
kind of Landon, because they've only played two games.
Yeah,
it is
more spirit.
I mean, it might be a little more more starters being working out there because usually your buys about week 6 or 7.
That's when our second is.
Well, that's when the second one is.
Yeah.
You guys got 2.
Yeah, we do.
That's when you're going to need more of a rest and relaxation for your starters and stuff like that. But right now, we're still fresh as starters, I would think.
Yeah.
You may see. I mean, they need to get some work done.
Yeah, I think you're right. The only thing
I'm going to say it might be a little bit different.
No, that's a really good point to make. I mean, I think the only guy that's banged up, KJ Winston, kind of left the game yesterday, but that's a good point. We're only in week 3, and normally, like you said, those bye weeks don't come till you get into Big Ten play. So we do have a bye week later. I believe it's after at USC.
After at USC,
and then before
at
at Wisconsin. So there's a little bit of a doozy of a schedule there going at USC bye week at Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, I mean, USC, that might be a top 10 matchup come then.
Just break
and then,
down the season in the first 4 games, the next 4 games, and the last 4.
That's how you do it?
You got to get through those.
Okay.
Get through these first 4 undefeated. Get through Illinois. Then we go to UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, and then Ohio State. That's the
all right. That's how Goon's splitting it up for us.
Yeah.
I love
it. You got to go 4-0, 3-1, and then 4-0.
Okay.
You're rocking and rolling, Bubba.
I love it. I love the insight.
Now I got to ask: would you rather go undefeated, or would you rather have 1 loss and host a playoff game? Because I want to host a playoff game here versus a Southern team on December 21st. You can fly in, Jerry. It would be great. You know?
Yeah, we'll get you here.
Another one of these. Snowed in. You'll be here for a month.
Yeah.
You're like, this is the reason I live in Texas, because I don't want to deal with this weather.
All right. Well, guys, we've had them for an hour and a half. We're going to let Marco and Goon get out of here. This was.
Are you throwing cheesesteaks at us or what?
We're going over to cheesesteak. I'm going to get you some food. We're going over to Campus Steaks right now. We're going to eat. I'm going to feed Marco.
Cheesesteak, Joe?
Absolutely, right now.
I'm not for whatever.
All right, look, we're 3 linemen about to go grub. So this was what we're calling the morning after show here at the student bookstore. It's going to be me and Goon every Sunday morning home games from 10 to 11 a.m. Hopefully we have some more special guests. I mean, Marco Rivera coming by was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, American Airlines.
Yep, exactly. Shout out American Airlines. The inconsistency in our air travel allowed us to have Marco here talking some Penn State football, talking offensive line for a while. So this is really fun time. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe below, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Sure, brother. Thank you.